everybody. Welcome to the third episode of SCAFF 2021 Seven Colors Australian Film Festival. I'm your host, Tanya J, and we'll be focusing on the cinema topic, family and domestic violence. We are with a wonderful panel, and I will be introducing them a little bit later, but we'll be focusing on the film Ek Bindu Sindhu and with the producer, actor, and director, Siddharth Banerjee. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much for having me here. It's absolutely pleasure.
You're welcome. I will talk to you about this film, which was screened some time ago, but I think it's very relevant even today.
Yep.
And would you like to tell us more about the film?
It is less than a year old, so it's pretty fresh in that way. I think the whole purpose of the film for me was I used to be involved more in fictional films. This also is a bit of a fictional film, but it is based on kind of inspired by real life incidents that happened and is still happening. For me, it was more of a message giving than anything else. The whole purpose of the film was that yes, domestic violence is a problem, but when you have a problem that starts from domestic, or which means from your home, you probably have to get stronger and face it and then stop it in a way. So sort of come out with that strength to actually stand firm and strong against it. And it starts from there, because if you see lots of cases, I'll give it a quick example. Sorry if I'm taking the time. 54% of the 78,000 cases of assaults are reported to be domestic violence cases, and unfortunately, there has been occasions when the victim, let's say the women that face domestic violence, they have, or anybody, in fact the men as well sometimes, they left their homes and then they had two options. One is to become homeless because of lack of infrastructure out there in the society, or two, go back to the partner that was the main cause of domestic violence. So it is a very sticky situation for the society. And I thought sometimes the media needs to play a bit of a role to actually pronounce that in a bold and beautiful way, sort of presentable way. So that was my whole inspiration behind starting it off.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. It's very insightful because, like I said, it's very relevant to nowadays. But
Yep.
As I promised the audience, I will not take any more time. I will introduce the rest of the panelists, starting from Nawal. We can't forget him. He is the film festival director and the founder of SKGA Incorporated Australia and the co-host with me today. And we start with Mr. David Black. I remember him from the last festival. And he's an actor, he's a producer, he's a director and a writer in multiple films, shot in Melbourne, and run a film web portal named Australian Short Film Network, which has about 20,000 film followers. And we have Nazir Yusufi. He is the Men's and Family Violence Pathways Practitioner in Relationships Australia, Victoria. Welcome. And we have Monica Raizada. She has acted in a feature film called Hidden Truth. I love that film. It was some time ago. And she's a Channel 31 TV presenter and a very well-known, and when I say very well-known, she's a well-known face in Melbourne for community service via Women's of Wyndham, mental health, family and domestic violence services. Last but not least, young gentleman over here, Thomas Insoy. We call him
Hello.
Tom. He's a film student from Swinburne University and operate Minor Film Festival. Welcome, Thomas. Hi. So I will invite all of you to give your opinion about this film. Let's start with Monica.
Oh, thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Sid, and thanks, Navalji, for organizing this, panel and discussion, which is so close to my heart. And Sid, amazing movie. When I was watching the movie, attention to detail is amazing. The way the little girl was making the drawing and coloring, you chose Goddess Durga, who is considered the feminine spiritual energy in Hinduism, which means that all girls should get that strength and power. And as you've discussed with Tanya in question and answer session, that your daughter is a karate, learner as well. Amazing. And not to forget that attention to detail, that girl, the way you have chosen the name, Ek Bindu Sindhu. That means each drop matters, each drop collectively make ocean. Each drop is important. And that's what I always tell girls when I'm talking about women empowerment. Your one kind word, one kind gesture can actually give strength to another girl. And here you have demonstrated it so well that the small girl, as you have already discussed, size doesn't matter, but it is that kind gesture, that thought of protecting mother. And here I must say that I have gone through the same thing in my previous marriage when I was very young. I got married when I was studying, and I got my daughter when I was very young. And believe me, my daughter has been my strength throughout my life. And I thought that, where I am now, when she becomes a little bit older, I will start giving help to the needy girls. And then, of course, I can understand Nazir's and David's point of view as well. When we talk about, family violence, it's not only girls are suffering, it's whole family suffers. So my approach through Ramon Helps, through this Hidden Truth movie was to give support to whoever needs. Today only I got a call from a boy who needs help, who's been separated. He can't meet his child and, suffering. So I never see gender. I just support myself with the team. And I went through one step ahead, I've done my counseling diploma as well with my specialization in couple conflict resolution and supporting those people who go through abuse in their life, whatever kind of abuse it is. So, and I'm so happy and delighted to be part of this panel where we share the same passion for one reason or the other. And thank you, Navalji, for inviting me here. It is a great, great initiative. And Tanya, you're doing a wonderful job. And I'm looking forward to hear from other panelists as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How about our young man? Thomas, you like to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. I really liked how you ended the film, Sid. I really like we said earlier, I liked the optimism of how she's taking up karate and building, like you said, the silent strength. And I like the film even more for how you said how you've shot it in your own home with your own family as actors, and it's just hearing how much of a personal project it's been. Last question: was it filmed during COVID? Is that why? Did that play into part of the reasoning of why it's in your own home with your own family?
Yes, in a way, yes, but not really. COVID wasn't the reason because it was actually shot. It was released last year, but it was shot just before COVID. So I think my other reason was the actual reason, which was if you keep it to yourself, then you're not responsible for any breakage of items.
Yes.
You can, we're dealing with a lot of amateurish environment. My daughters are not professionals, neither my wife is. So at times it might go a bit over the board. So I could, if I tell somebody I'll use your house till 8 o'clock, it might go up to 9, 10. So I thought, I will do it at our home only.
Yeah.
So that was the reason.
And just to support my friend still at Swinburne, it's really encouraging how you've managed to keep everything so contained and still make a really great project just using your own resources. And that's just really encouraging to students like myself and
yes,
the people still at Swinburne.
I was a part of there's a film school in India as well after the name of Satyajit Ray. And what I used to do is I used to work with them as well. I've learned how you can turn a mole into a mountain in terms of facilities and resources. What I think, if you have the message pretty strong in a film, and if the actors are good, regardless of what your content is, I mean, yes, the content is very important here, but if the message is strong and the acting is good, then obviously the message comes through pretty properly. And I was very clear about the message because I've seen domestic violence a lot around me and overseas and India and in Australia as well, in every community. Don't get me wrong, in every community. And there are verbal abuse, there are mental abuse, there are physical abuse. And if you see in this whole film, I have touched on all of them. So I was verbal abuse when I was shouting at my wife. Then I was at the end, I was trying to be physical. The kids were crying. There was a mental abuse happening there. I was talking when she in the film, she was pregnant, so she couldn't cook in time. And I was giving her a mental abuse, but little caring about her pregnancy. I was saying, oh, it's 8 o'clock and I still haven't cooked the dinner. So that is it's a mental trauma without being supportive. I'm being critical. So yes, I've touched all of those three. So whenever you guys are making film moving forward, just that's the key word, that have the content, have the clear message across. Making a film around it becomes easier.
Combat that gear acquisition syndrome, as we talked a bit in the last episode of SCAFF, and just focus on the content.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Sid. David, Nazir, you like to jump in and give your opinion about this?
I'll let Nazir give his opinion. My only opinion is I think it's great that films are being made to highlight the issue. So, but I'll let Nazir take this one.
All right.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Tanya and Nawal. Thanks, everyone. Sid, Energy, that is a very beautiful film I watched today. And because of my background, I'm a men's family violence practitioner. So, and I'm also facilitating a men's behavior change program. My background is also, I have a graduation in men's behavior change programs. I have a graduate certificate on that. Yeah, as you touched on the different types of violence earlier, talking with Thomas. Of course, I as an assessor or a men's behavior change program facilitator, I will put a bit light on that. I like that. I don't know if you have background on about family violence, but looking on your movie when you are coming from outside. In the car, I mean that you are happy and you didn't look tired, but when you entered the home, you were so rude and disrespectful with your not only with your wife, even with the child. You didn't hug, you didn't kiss, which shows that you are a bit rude and disrespectful person. And also, you instead went to a refrigerator and you picked a bottle of drink and start drinking, and you did verbal abuse, and you put her down when she said that why you are late again, and you said that that this big company, they're not for the they're not paying for the pretty faces. This kind of putting someone down, and you are not answering in a respectful way, which shows that you are abusing and you are an abusive person. And also we can see that in many other episodes and other area, you just started drinking, sitting there, and you are not caring about the kids. If she won something in karate and first position, I mean, and she, your wife and kids, they are hungry and didn't eat anything. You didn't care about them, and also you have physically abused. You used intimidation. You have thrown her on the bed while she's pregnant, for example. And you don't have any insight, you don't have any insight that your behavior, how that impacts the child, you think that, okay, I have sent the child in the other room, but no, if child is sleeping or if they are in the other room, still they can hear. They can see that what is happening. You are loud and you are drinking and you are abusive towards the mom, and she can hear, and it impacts badly to them. And these all things, I don't know if you have behavior, you have this family violence background, but you have shown that the real, that pattern of behavior and all the types of violence you have shown in that movie, which I think it is something that, especially for the migrant community, that maybe we should make more movies like this and show to the people to raise awareness about family violence. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, now I got it. Thanks for the fantastic feedback, and I think you basically actually hit the nail on the head, because when I was having a question from concept to completion. My challenge was that I have not personally lived through that. So neither my parents nor myself are as I can understand. But I have heard, I have listened to, I have watched, and that education in me tells me the difference between abuse and, what are the degrees of abuses and how one-off becomes a recurring event, and recurring means habit. And if you see in the film also, when the daughter was painting or drawing and right at the other end of the house, which you correctly said, they can actually still hear. And when that episode happening here, I was shouting at my wife saying, "Hey, I'm funding my own booze, not funded by your dad." Okay. Yeah. So that conversation was happening way away from the younger one. Was too young. She was crying because too much of noise and too much of fighting going on, verbal fight going on between mom and dad, sort of thing. It's an angry environment that made her cry. But the older one was actually stop drawing and then give it a ear. What is happening is all of a sudden gone quiet, and I was shouting at the wife. Then she comes and joins and say, "I had enough of this." Like sometimes, and there has been films also on this where it went to even different level, when the kid was a little bit older and actually did something wrong to the man, in fact, they killed the man. So for me, that was the challenge, to write and throw everything in, because I know there are verbal abuses. I know there are sometimes indifference is in form of abuse. As you correctly said, that when the character came back home, he couldn't care less about the pregnant wife, about the success of the child, about the playfulness of the younger one. It's all about him. His dinner is not ready. He's upset. It's booze time and there's nothing to have it with the booze, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so it's a one-way traffic for him. And that's what results.
One thing about the gender role, you are expecting her to prepare food. That is you believe on you have a strong gender role belief that, okay, if I'm going outside and working and everything should be prepared,
Yes.
That's a clean house. And also when I come home, then what is this? You still, what's up? Still you have not prepared food. That is one of the things that you have that belief that, it's not my job, When I come home, then everything should be ready. So that is a strong gender role belief that you have.
So as long as you found the movie very realistic and not underdone or overdone, I'm happy with that. That's my goal.
That was the thing that I have found in the movie, and when we are assessing, I'm doing assessment and intake, every 3 days or 4 days, it comes, all those issues coming, with the men when they come to our program. So yeah, we face these things every day.
I must say, sorry, the message is very clear. Yeah, sorry about that, Tanya.
No,
I must say
okay.
the message is very clear. What you wanted to convey and the way the flow is going, it is amazing. So, and I'm sure I have learned something from you when you were saying that, you haven't really used lots of resources and infrastructure in producing this movie. Because I meet so many people as well, and we are working towards prevention as well. So movie making, I think, can work towards prevention also, where we can actually educate community at large. What are the issues and how we can solve? And, as we know, Nazir is providing so many services to men for managing their anger and changing their behavior, etc. We can show all this through movies because that is something everyone finds interesting, and you can you don't need to run the courses to educate them through movies. So yeah, good on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Well done, David. I know that Nazir was just emphasizing especially on childhood victimization. And I know that you have a lot of information for our audience. Would you like to talk about it? And Nazir can join.
Oh, for sure. Rather than just hopping straight in and talking about myself, I'd like to give some context of Australia in the time I was growing up. So I was born in '64. If you can imagine, from the 70s in Australia, we basically, you're allowed to physically hit your kid. It was actually encouraged. And it was mainly women that hit the kids, not the men. You know, like after your mum had beat the crap out of you, she'd say, just wait till your father gets home, as if something worse was going to happen. But there were a lot of very angry men too. We had men that had come home from World War I, World War II, Korea, and the young men were being sent off to Vietnam. People don't come back from war normal.
Yes.
I don't think need to go into that too much, but not everybody can fit in after that. So the amount of families there were where there was domestic violence, which was the men, not just the mother and the teachers at school actually physically hitting you, but actually the men losing their temper and hitting the kids first and then hitting the wife. That wasn't talked about because these men were considered war heroes. So you can't say to somebody that's been traumatized that they're an evil person. Now, so this was really swept under the carpet. But the problem with that is that somebody that comes back from a war has been traumatized. Now, I greatly admire the very many men and women that came back from wars that didn't cause problems. Some people just went the opposite way and became amazing and wanted to help everybody and really chipped in for the community. But I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's the old cliche about the old man in an old tin shack out the back of the lane. Every suburb had one, and we had one too. And yes, they did have shotguns. There are a lot of people who could not mix back into society. And when you can't express yourself, when you can't find a way to deal with something, sometimes it comes out in violence. And of course, the victims of the violence, such as the children and the wives, some of them end up acting out too. So we've actually got ripples that go through generations. In my case, my mum was divorced and she got remarried, and she'd been remarried after that too. This particular one didn't work out. This man had been a Holocaust survivor. Now, boy, you did not say anything against Holocaust survivors, people that had been in camps. This man hadn't been in a camp, whereas most of his family were killed in Auschwitz and a couple survived. This guy managed in Poland to get to the Russian side quickly, and he joined the Russian forces. But he had witnessed all of this, and he came back from a war. It's not like things started out terrible either. This was the greatest guy in the world in the beginning, but it didn't last. I'm not going to name him, and I've probably said too much, but I can now talk in general. Oh man, it was fucking terrible. I've got 2 broken teeth here still to this day because they don't grow back from being bashed as a kid. I saw my mum's front tooth knocked out. I've experienced the stuff you couldn't talk about it. You said something against a Holocaust survivor in the Melbourne Jewish community, you were the evil one. You were the one making it up. Everybody was going to come down on you heavy because you had been a victim. So, whereas I don't know Adolf Hitler. He was dead long before I was born. My stepfather, he's not my stepfather now, he didn't know Adolf Hitler. But from what one man did in 1945, hit this guy. This guy hit me. I have never married or had kids. Thank God. I think I'd make a terrible father. My brother and my sister made fantastic parents, I think, because of what they went through. But I know other people that have made the worst parents under the sun. So you got another ripple going through the next generation of more people that have been traumatized. But I can add to this more. I really didn't mean that outburst before, but boy, I'm 57 and it's still near impossible to talk about this stuff. And the repercussions tomorrow for me, even mentioning it, are going to be unbelievable, because family do not want to have this talked about because they think it makes them look like evil people. 45 years of silence is not funny, you know. But getting down to it, this second guy, the second marriage, came from one of those horrible cultures of machismo and honor. You know, it was like the father must have the last word. Only nowadays in society are people starting to understand that it doesn't matter that the child is 6, and it doesn't matter that the grandfather or grandmother is 80. It doesn't matter what your IQ is. Everybody's opinions and everybody's feelings are valid. I don't agree with putting people up on a pedestal. I don't agree that somebody in this life can be considered the great God. So yes, you might be the man of the family. That's something that nowadays men and women work, but back then it was like you were the man of the family. You brought home the food. It was your house. You provided everything. You must be shown respect. You must have the last word at the table. I'm glad we're getting beyond that culture. But we're not 100% beyond it yet. Anyway, I went on too long there. I'm really sorry, Nazir. The floor's yours. I'm sorry.
No, thanks, David. I just want to reflect on the trauma, and also because of that trauma, you said that men who you grew up in that time when there was war, the people, they were going to Vietnam and they went to other places, and they come there as a traumatic person. Of course, when they come back, they have trauma, and also because of that trauma, we can see that who will suffer from their trauma. It is the kids like you and the woman they have like wife or partner. So it is in that is something. It's kind of reoccurring trauma for those people, when they went to the war and they come back here and they use violence against the kids and their children. That is one of the things that is very significant that you have experienced. And also about the parenting, that person, the second person, is very authoritarian and dismissive person, and say, always saying that, okay, I have, this word, and everyone should follow that, and there is no democracy, nothing. Yeah, we have different style of parenting. Of course, one of them is that that person that he was very authoritarian, and he was not letting anyone to talk about, which is very sad that you have experience on, and you showed that your truth as well, that it was broken because of that abuse and torture. So it is unfortunately still it is happening in the society, and the movies like Sid's movie, we have to raise awareness about those violence and abuse.
Well, I spoke far too much about myself and my experience, and I didn't really say what I wanted to say. So, yes, that is what happened, But I also felt that we can't be putting this one person as the attacker and one person as a victim. And I'm not into victim blaming, but as soon as we do that, we're going black and white, choosing sides, good and evil. And a problem that involves all of society. It doesn't matter that your neighbours next door are a great loving couple, which, by the way, my neighbours next door are a great loving couple. I love watching them bringing up their daughter. She's 3 years old now. But the things that happen in a broken home are going to affect the community that little girl's going to grow up in. The things that happen now will affect my neighbours next door, even though they're great loving people, because we're all putting in to the same society. The person that walks down the street and ends up being mugged or attacked, if you ever talk to the mugger, you know, when they make victim impact statements and they hear about the criminal, all of a sudden you're starting to find out in many, many cases that there is a broken home, there is a lack of love, there is abuse. So I'm saying that this is a problem that involves the whole community. I'd like to say something about the person I mentioned before. I hadn't thought of him in years, and I decided to look up his name on the internet. 3 weeks ago, I had no idea Nawal was going to ask me to be on a domestic violence thing. I found an article from 3 years ago. He was an old man in a nursing home with a hearing aid, very old, very broken, and at the age of 94, he finally got bar mitzvahed. He'd never gotten to get his bar mitzvah in World War II. So that's what the world knows of him, and I don't want to put dirt on his memory, but God, what I went through was shocking. So what he went through was shocking. Do I want to make this man a monster, a boogie monster, and throw all of the hate and the evil? That's not going to solve the problem. We're not going to solve this problem with the sort of posters I see at the tram stops when I'm going to work. My tax money is spent on money to highlight domestic violence in a way that horrifies me. I mean, I'm 57, so people don't see I'm a Jewish guy. They see, oh, there's a white, late middle-aged male. And I'm standing in front of posters that have got males of middle age, and they're the aggressors of the domestic violence, and there's women who are the victims. And then I noticed that women standing at this tram stop are suddenly sort of eyeing me. I don't want to be seen as some evil character, and I certainly don't want to pay for it. I think society itself, we're all responsible for each other. I got brought up with the Bible and it said, am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes. I think we've got to stop making this black and white thing, this good, this evil, because the person who is an abuser, quite aside from war, a person that might be a bully might have been a victim of a lack of love, might have had a terrible mother that didn't hug them or humiliated them. And it's like the swing to the left equals the swing to the right. And you end up with some horrible narcissistic person that goes around bullying people because of what happens to them. And what happens to their kids, you end up with this never-ending cycle. Let's stop having the big demon out here. And let's stop having the angel out here. We're all shades of grey. And if we do accept each other, we can start working towards the problem together. Now, I didn't mean that as knocking Sid's film. He needed to highlight the problem. And when you highlight a problem, you do sometimes start with a very simple thumbnail sketch. But Sid's made the thumbnail sketch. And I think it's now time for us to realise that this is a very complex problem. Whereas the solution is actually very simple. The solution is don't abuse people, but the problem itself is very complex and needs to be understood to get towards that solution.
Beautifully said, David. Honestly, it was very insightful. And thanks, Nazir. I think Monica wants to say something.
Yes, thank you,
You can
Tanya.
make it quick. Yeah.
Yeah, very quick. Thank you, David. And the way you said that, when we are, blaming someone, that doesn't really solve the problem, especially for a future generation. And thankfully, I have taken the same approach. Whenever any girl, mostly it is girls who approach me, only few men, they approach me, I like to talk to the other party as well. And you won't believe my success rate is really good when you talk to other person and listen to their story as well, and make them realize in a nice way that life can be better for all of you, especially where kids are involved as well. And 99% there is a success rate that they live happily, and I've been doing it for last 12, 13 years. And now when you are saying that, you didn't tell anyone, and that happens, majority of the families, they try to shove it under the carpet. And I have a very funny story in relation to domestic violence, which happens very rarely. Once a teacher called me, her student's mom, she said that I'm not going back home, I'm coming with you to your place today. And she was shocked because, the lady was bashed, beaten up and all that. She didn't want to go back to her house. So this teacher called me and I talked to this victim and she said, can you help me? I said, yes, what's the best thing you will like? She said, I want to live with this man only if he changes his behavior. I said, give me his number and I'll talk to him. And that lady, then she said, okay, I'll give you his number. 7, 8 days, I didn't receive a call. I called her and she was laughing. And I said, well, it's really good to hear your laugh. What happened? She said, my husband called me and he said that come back home. And I told him, I'm not coming back home until and unless you talk to Monica. And he said that, okay, prepare any legal document and write down to do and not to do. I'll do that. I'll sign it, but don't make me talk to Monica. Because there was a fear of exposure and there was a fear of getting a bad name in the community. Although, of course, I never discuss anyone's name. It is 100%, privacy being followed, but you're scared. So that is one very funny incident. And I really hope that if the problems could be solved just by any name, will be really good. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you, Monica. We are nearing the end of our episode, but we will end this with talking about the significance of making a film on this subject. I will just make my input and you all can come in. I think significance, I'm not a film producer, but I think any kind of trauma can escalate into domestic violence. Like what David said, war-related trauma. And then even medical trauma. Somebody has gone through a super crazy surgery and then it's giving so much of pain, it's unbearable to the point that you get a little violent. And then even natural disasters, people who go through bushfires, there are many pre-attributes. Even a little ignition of a matchstick can cause a lot of trauma to the point that it can even flare up an argument. And anything can escalate into a domestic violence situation. So I would like all of you to contribute on the significance of it, and we'll wrap up our episode. You can start with Sid. Sid, we can't hear you.
Yes, sorry. I think you are right. The fact that it is, and to pretty much put your context, your words to the context of David's as well, it is not one single reason. There is no five trigger points of domestic violence or domestic abuse. It is, we have, I think communication is the only way to solve it. I mean, as a starter, the reason is that when you talk to the other person, the so-called abuser, and that was my film there, that sometimes an abuser is sitting just next to you, and you cannot on earth believe this person could be an abuser. He could be the best man of the best behavior with lots of thoughts. And that's why when he's driving back home in that film, the first shot was he's driving back home, nice and polite, obeying the rules, blinkers are on, and he's singing in a lovely song that is playing in the radio. So he's a very normal, natural, successful person outside of the door. And as Nazir put it, that as soon as he enters the door, there's a mental shift. And what is triggering that mental shift? Why is he like that? Some third party has to talk, whether it's his friend or a person like Monica or whoever. And then sometimes it might come out with a solution saying, I am doing this because you don't know what I've gone through. and then that gone through part gets revealed, and that's when without diagnosis you can't prescribe. We're so eager to prescribe, and as David said again, the evil and the angel sort of thingy. We're so ready to prescribe. We're ready to identify instead of going through the details. It's like Google searching after coughing, and then Google might say, oh, in that case, if these are the 5 things, then you are a TB patient. When it's not, it's just a flu from next door or next wherever. So I think that starting point from the film point of view, just my whole aim was to show that it is an event that's happening in normal, natural. You don't have to be out of the world to be a part of this. And secondly is that charity begins at home for everything. It could be consequential. This guy could have been brought up in a wrong way. So many factors involved. It's just that as long as we're talking about it, as long as there's information out there for the person to access, both parties, victim and abuser, then at least a lot of people actually quietly go and do that. And their mind shifts also always shifting, from one pendulum end of the other. So yeah, so I think that was my whole aim, and I think that's my input in this case.
Thank you, Sid. Thomas, David, Nazir, Monica, even Naval. Any final points in the significance of this film?
Thanks, Tanya. Sid, very well said. But and Tanya, the way you said, there can be a trauma. But what I have noticed very sadly, more than 300 cases, that why do abuser chooses just a person who is weaker than him? Right?
Of course.
So, they don't, when they are at work, if someone, lights it, they won't be angry. So they just, if they are in a position of power, then only they play it. So that's my main point, So for that, it's really good. We can make movies. And now we are, my journey started from helping the family violence victims, then working on prevention programs and projects. And now it is taking a next level, which is, Multicultural Women of the World, which is totally activism, where we want to influence the legal system because we see that legally women suffer a lot, So yes, we can make movies on this. As we discussed before, movies are very powerful medium, and it will be, at the end of the day, we want a happy community, where everyone feels safe and happy, So I think this will be a very good way making more movies. And maybe I've got so many stories. If we can join hands together, we can really do wonders. Thank you so much.
I think all your background and your material, aspiring film producer, a young student we have with us today, he can use all of this to start his career. I think it's a lot. When it's relevant, it's always better to send the message across. That's the only way, because people love watching films. So what? It's on screen. Watch it, learn it. Whoever who picks it up will do something good about it. So I think this was a very insightful discussion. It's an amazing episode, one of the best episodes that I have conducted. I love it. It's one of the comprehensive episodes that I've done. Thanks, Namal, for even having this topic for us. And I'm very grateful and thankful for your participation, because it is a very crucial topic in our society. So thank you so much. Until we meet again, thank you, David, Nasir, Monica, Thomas, Sid, and our audience. That's all we got for our third episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Tanya J. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Thank you.